Welcome back to Beginning Writing for Publication. This is the third video in the first session, Developing a Writing Program. We talked about what venues were best to publish in and suggested that it's very important to consider publishing in journals. When you've decided to publish in a journal, you have to decide whether to go with the traditional print-based journal, an online journal, or an open access venue. Journals have the positive side of publishing in a journal is that of all the ways of publishing, this actually has the most academic value. The size of journal articles, the amount of data that they expect to be included is a reasonable amount for a scholar so that you can have several papers out there in a very reasonable length of time. The downside of publishing in journals is that acceptance in a journal is very competitive. And of course, the better the journal is, the more prestige the journal has, then the more competitive the acceptance process is. Acceptance can also take a very long time, and this can be very frustrating. It can be a matter of weeks or even months before you hear from a journal whether the article you submitted will be considered for publication. And then, of course, if you get it back and it was rejected, this can be very disappointing. So what is the purpose of academic journals? This is a bit of a review. It provides a forum for communication among scholars. It sets the intellectual standards in the field. When your work is published, it tells its stamp that this is what the field considers good scholarship. It also sets the agenda of what to study. This is very important. It shows what topics people in your field are interested in reading and studying about. What are the hot topics? What is the edge of research where the best scholars are working? If you look at journals over time, they can provide an institutional memory of how ideas and knowledge developed. They bring information to the public and certify that an author's work is authentic and important. And of course, we all know that it's important to our careers. Where to find an appropriate journal? I cannot stress enough how important it is to find the best journal for your publication. And I suggest that you be very competent in searching the library electronic databases. In other words, when you put in your topic and it brings up all the various articles that are written in your topic, where are they being published? So this will help you focus on who's interested in your work. If you don't know how to use the electronic databases, I'm including a short movie, a link to a movie with the resources for this session. And it just kind of briefly tells you how to use an electronic database. I've found that the librarians are also very helpful in helping you if you go over to the library, or perhaps you can consider taking one of their workshops on how to use the electronic database or how to search using the library resources. This is very well spent time. Another place you can look is in the reference lists of articles that you have found interesting and apropos to your work. In other words, if you found an article that is on your topic and seems important to you, look at the reference list and see what journals are listed there, because these are the journals that focus on that topic. Another good place to look is professional organizations. Many professional organizations these days publish their own journals. And if the organization is well respected, it's a good chance that the journals that they produce are also well respected in your field. Okay, do you go with print or online? Well, if this was 5 years ago, I would say definitely go with print, but it's not 5 years ago. And online journals are beginning to get the prestige that they were lacking for many years. It's also true that most journals these days, or many journals these days at least, offer either print or online access because so many people now are going online for their reading and their research. The advantages and disadvantages, how print compares with online. At this moment in time, print is still a little bit more prestigious, but that's changing. So the online is growing in prestige. Print may be a little longer to publication because the online speeds up the process of submitting and being reviewed and the back and forth communication. Print may have somewhat a less citation potential simply because more people are going online to get their information. The important point, rather than being is it print or is it online, is what is the reputation of the journal. We'll give you some things to look at to make sure that it's a quality journal. What about open access? This is very new and it's becoming very popular. This is where they offer scholarship with no fee to the reader, with either print or online journal access, the traditional ones. You still have to subscribe, and so the reader is paying a fee. But with open access, readers can fully go to a site and use the information there. But just recognize that someone must pay to put information out there. Someone must run the blog, manage the files, pay for the web space. So there's going to be fees somewhere. Is it paid by advertisement? If it is, you better check carefully to see who those advertisers are. If they're paid by the author, which is a very popular thing to do these days, you need to be careful because there are a lot of predatory journals out there that simply want your money. There's the good side is open access reaches a lot of people. The downside is that there may not be control over where your ideas go and where your data goes and who accesses that. And that can be problematic. So make sure you're very familiar with the source if you're going to go to open access and know what their rules and regulations are. There's usually a very quick turnaround, but again, be careful of the predatory journals. I'm also in the resources for this lesson going to give you a list that lists some identified predatory journals and also try to give you some hints on what to look for to find out if a journal is predatory. Okay, I'm going to suggest that upside down planning is the way to go when you're writing an article. And that is identify early on the journals to which you're going to submit that paper. To do that, you must become familiar with journals in your field and think about 3 or 4 that might be appropriate for you. Because I will say this several times because it's so important. The closer the match is between your article and the journal, the better chance you have of being published. So, how do you do that? What are you looking for to consider a journal? Who is the audience of the journal? Is it reaching the people that you want to read your article? In what language is it published? If you only write in a language other than English and you want to publish in that language, there's nothing wrong with that. There's some really good journals in different languages, but you're not going to reach as large an audience. Is it peer-reviewed? I'm going to suggest that it is rather a waste of an academic's time to publish in venues that are not peer-reviewed. Peer-reviewed is kind of the standard that must be reached if you're going to get academic credit for something. In other words, your colleagues have looked at that article and have judged it to be quality scholarship. Now, just paying and having it published is not good enough. That peer review by scholars who know what they're doing is essential. Find out what disciplines and specialties the journal includes. What exposure opportunity does it offer? That's typically measured by impact factor. What that is saying is how many people are going to read it, how many people are going to cite it, how much of an impact is it going to have on your field. Now, we'll talk about it a little more, but exactly what that means depends on your field. What are my chances of acceptance? and what are my options regarding time. These are kind of mutually have to be balanced, because if you need something published right away, you may not want to reach for the highest journal that you can think of, because you might have to resubmit to another journal if it's not accepted. And so, how fast do I need it published? How much chance do I take to submit it to these higher journals? That's a decision you will have to make. Let's look at impact factor. It's actually a measure of the frequency with which the average article in a journal has been cited in a particular year. And so, in other words, what that's saying is that if the impact factor is high, that means that scholars take information from the articles in that journal and use it in their own research. So obviously it's having an impact in the field. FI is the average number of citations received per paper during the 2 preceding years, which is typically what you're going to find when you look up impact factor. Qatar University awards researchers who publish in journals with an impact factor of 1 or above. There's monetary reward. However, finding a journal with an impact factor like that varies according to your field, because, for example, in engineering, there's a lot of engineers. They read a lot of journals. They write a lot of articles. Medical doctors, there's a huge number of medical doctors. They read a lot of journals, and they do a lot of research and writing. Ethnologists, art educators, education in general, social work, not so many. And so in these fields, the impact factors overall tend to be lower. So look at the respective journals in your field and see what their impact factor is, and use that as a guideline when you're looking at other journals. I'm putting some resources again so that you can go and read a little more about impact factor. And this one link will show you how to find impact factor. Typically, impact factor should be listed on the journal's webpage. If it's not, there's nothing wrong with dropping a line when it says contact us. Send in a message and say, could you tell me what your impact factor is? Now, some of the predatory journals publish an impact factor that is not true. They're simply lying. So try to check the impact factor if it's a journal that you're not very familiar with. Another link that I'm going to put on your resources is the changing measures of impact. As we all go to the web more for our information, there are changing ways to measure impact. But right now, in this academic climate, impact factor is still important. You realize, of course, that new journals may be very good journals, but until a journal's been around a while, it's not going to have an impact factor. So, the trade-offs: high impact factor or high chance of publication, exposure, reaching more people, or speed, getting it published, paid by the author or free to the author. It's never free. Somebody's paying. Online or hard copy. These are some of the things that you're going to have to decide. The audience. What is the journal's focus? Read the mission statement. This should be on the web page. Does it match what you're doing? For example, say you're in biology. Are you in cutting-edge research in biology? Are you in biology education? Are you in applied biology? Are you in medical biology? Who is it that is going to be reading this article? Read the editorial board for the journal. Do you recognize any of those names? Are they people that you would consider the leaders of your field? Look them up. Read their CVs. Does the journal reach the people you want to read your article? For example, if you're only trying to reach a regional audience, then publish in a regional journal. If you want your research to have global impact, you're going to have a journal that is international. How available is your journal in the important libraries? Go to the library sites and see if that journal is listed in their collection, or at least in the electronic databases. What is its circulation? Again, what's a good circulation? That depends on your field. But compare among the journals that you're looking at to see what their circulation is, because if not very many people are looking at that journal, then it may not be the best place to publish. What abstract and indexing services include the journal? Most of the websites will say we're listed in Scopus and Thomson and so forth and so on. They will tell you. You can also, I'm giving you a link in your resources where you can go and look at some of those indexing services and abstracts are. You can look in your library when you're looking at the electronic databases in your library. Look it up and see, does Scopus have it? Does Thomson have it? Does, whatever the ones are that, for example, for education, which is my field, if it's not an ERIC or EBSCO, then I probably don't want to publish in it. And what is its impact factor? Okay, language. English is the international language. If English is an option, definitely publish in English. You will reach more people. That may change. Academia is always changing, but at this point in time, English is the international language. If you publish in English, always have a native speaker review and edit your paper. You can also, many editors, many journals provide editing. You can have your paper edited. They might even send it back and say, this is a good paper, we would like to consider it, but it's going to have to be edited by a professional editing service. We offer one if you'd like to take advantage of it. Usually there's a fee associated with that, but I can guarantee you any good magazine, any good journal is not going to publish a paper that has grammatical, spelling, punctuation, any kind of errors in the language used. They're not going to publish it, and they don't have time to rewrite it. So either get it edited before you send it in or take advantage of the journal's editing services. Sometimes you can publish in more than one language. That's something you will either say so on the web page, or you could ask the journal. If, for example, you wanted to publish something in a regional Arabic journal to try to reach an Arabic audience and would like to publish in English in an English journal, ask the editors, because once a paper is accepted by a journal or published by a journal, that paper actually belongs to them, and you don't have the right to publish it somewhere else without their permission. That's good. Know your journals. Read the table of contents. Do those articles sound like yours? Are they of similar topics? Are they similar in style? If you wrote your title in the table of contents, would it fit? Does it go with the others? Frequently, it's easier to get published in a journal with a narrow focus that fits your topic. If something is specifically on marine biology, it might be easier to publish under marine biology in that paper than in, say, Nature or some journal that does all of the sciences. If you wonder whether or not your article fits, you think it does, but you're not sure, before you go through the process of submitting, which can be arduous, drop a note to the editor with just a very brief summary of your title and a very brief summary, and say, do you think that this is a good fit for your journal? Should I proceed to submit? Okay, some things to think about. Look on the web page. See how long the average length of time it takes for a paper from submission to acceptance, or from submission to publication. If they don't have it on their website, ask. The geographic distribution, how much editorial support it gets, the percentage of acceptances to submissions, These kinds of things you really need to judge whether this is a good fit for you. And so if you can't find it on their website, ask. Make sure you know what kind of articles it accepts. Some journals accept different kinds of articles, reviews of the literature, as well as quantitative, qualitative, mixed methods. Know specifically what kinds of articles it accept, and you can tell this by just reading the table of contents and reading a few of the articles. Always do that. Journals differ in their styles. How casual is it? How formal? What's the style of writing? Read some of the articles in the journal so that you'll know if does this fit what I intend to write. Now, always read the author guidelines carefully. They're in charge. If they say 12 to 15 pages, do not make it 11 pages or 16 pages. They say 12-point Helvetica, you put it in 10-point, you put it in 12-point Helvetica. You do exactly what they say. They do not have time or the patience to change your paper. That's your job. What kinds of citation style do they want? What kinds of references? How formal is the writing? That's all in the writing style and all in the author guidelines, and read them carefully. So this is the key point for this whole video. The closer the match is between what you have written and the journal, the better chance you have to be published. And I'll add, the more impact your article will have because you will be reaching the people who will value and use your research. Thank you.